This is Marcus Korval with MMAnytt, and we're back with our podcast. Daria Barnato's still out. I think she's still hungover somewhere in Vegas, getting ready for a fight. We got some new guests with us. We got Terry Bullman all the way from Tennessee, who's in town. And for you that don't know him, he's the inventor of the show Human Weapon. Is that the official title in the music?
Yes.
Human Weapon. Mm-hmm. But no, I mean your title, executive producer?
I developed the show, so I'm the creator of, I guess, the Human Weapon, you would say.
Also on the New York Clash for the World Kickboxing Series, WK.
The Chuck Norris League, World Combat League, fought as a heavyweight for the World Combat League on the New York team.
And a professional boxer, and a professional kickboxer, and a professional MMA fighter. Done a lot in your life.
Yeah, now I'm old.
And Kenny Johnson, wrestling coach over at Blackhouse, if the t-shirt wasn't giving it away, working with Fabricio Werdum, getting him ready for his fight against Cain Velasquez. Pedro Munoz is fighting on the card tomorrow. We're going to talk about him in a second. Javal Dos Anjos, Lyoto Machida, Anderson Silva. Who else do you work with?
Wanderlei. I've worked with all the Brazilians that come through Blackhouse, Harja Gracie, Jose Aldo, BJ Penn. Name a few. So whoever wants to come learn wrestling, baby, come on in. Next guy I want fucking Conor McGregor. I want him to come in and work with him. So come on in, buddy. Let's do it.
Do you think he can outspeak you?
Man, I think between him and I, we'll get some work done. We'll get some work done. Come on, buddy. Get in here. Fucking call me. I know he was in California doing his rehab, and a friend of mine was doing rehab with him, and we never got to connect. So I don't know him, but a friend of mine was just rehabbing with him, trying to put us together, just, and it never happened. So I'm sorry about that. I wish he was here, but I know he's got a couple guys he's got to go up against, and I'd love to work with that guy. He's a good guy.
I heard he might be on his way to Sweden. I'm not 100% sure for the card tomorrow in Sweden, and I actually did his an interview with him there in our studio over there before his UFC debut, where he held a speech. Sounded like he was from Braveheart, even though Braveheart's from Scotland and he's from Ireland. And you've been to Sweden as well for UFC. It was 2 years ago
with the Diego Nunes.
Yeah,
went over there. I had a great time in Sweden, as always, and Marcus was there as a host. It snowed, so it was nice. Everything was, the food was good.
And you had Pedro Munoz with you at the time, wasn't in the UFC. Now he's fighting for the third time tomorrow against Jared Saunders. What's your thought of that fight?
I think Pedro's been a black belt in jiu-jitsu, since, he's 18. He was a wrestling champion in Brazil, and his jiu-jitsu's sick, his Muay Thai's sick. I think he's well-rounded. And his weight cut went really well. I know it did. And, Jared's a good wrestler. He came from Oklahoma State, so he's been, winning his fights with wrestling and his cardio, and he's a bigger guy for 135 as well. So, I'm looking forward to seeing Pedro go out there and hold his ground. And I think if it goes to the ground,
it's amazing.
Pedro, but yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
On that card tomorrow night, you also have Rafael Sansao, who Pedro fought in his first fight with 8 days' notice. Who's ranked number 3 in the UFC. He's on that card tomorrow night. I think he's probably next in line for TJ Dillashaw if he wins that fight tomorrow against Brian Caraway. Now, what do you think? So, coming in to the UFC, 8 days notice, you just had a title fight for RFA. What could Peter done differently in that fight with Assunção?
I think, man, Assunção was a top guy, not only in the UFC, but ranked in the world. Yeah. So I think that he came in with, regardless of 8 days notice, he's always trained, so he lives a good lifestyle in it with the MMA. I think, man, it was close. It went down to a decision. I think maybe he might have, instead of always going forward, I think he might have did some angling off, and we talked to him about it too. His Pedro's a real aggressive fighter, and sometimes the aggression works against you if you're getting tagged going in. So I know it was close. Assunção won for sure, so it wasn't close like a controversial. But I think Pedro's just used to always, everything that happens, he goes forward. Instead, maybe kind of angling out and backing up to set things out and go forward again. I think it was just small details. Plus, it was a big stage for him. I think he handled it pretty well, especially going against a top guy that was in line for a title shot, actually. Yeah. And there was actually a title eliminator, someone that dropped out. Yeah. And then actually when Assunção won, he didn't get the title shot, but I think that maybe if Pedro could have won, maybe would have just dropped it that way. Like your boy Terry on with Joe Soto. That guy just weaseled right into there. That guy.
And did great against TJ.
And did great, and I think that Pedro did well, and then came back in his next fight and put it down. One of the best complete MMA fights I've seen in a long time. Pedro with his second fight in the UFC looked unbelievable, and now we'll see. We got a good formidable challenge with him. This guy's got a big overhand, and taking him down. So we'll see what happens. I know Pedro's ready, so I'm not stressing about it. But hey, man, it's still nerve wracking because one punch
changes the game.
Changes the whole game.
Now,
especially with you big guys. Wow,
yeah.
I get nervous when I'm coaching like Nogueira or Fabricio or man, just a touch. They're swinging so hard. And it's like 250 pounds versus 250 pounds, and just it's worse than a car accident, man. You'd rather go motorcycle to car sometimes than 6 ounces to 6 ounces.
And it's the ones that you don't see. You see it coming and you brace for it and you take punches that you shouldn't be able to take.
Yeah.
And then you get hit with a little shot in the back of the head. You wake up like 3 weeks later, like, what happened?
You had one of those.
I had one of those.
In boxing?
In boxing. The last guy I boxed was actually 4-24. I don't know. He's pretty good, right? And I'm pissed at my coach because I have to fight the guy. I got all these people here to see my fight. And I'm like, all right, whatever, I come out, and the guy literally has both hands down. And I'm like, okay. So I start hitting him with the jab, and he swings like a crazy right hand and tags me. I'm like, okay, all right. And literally, evidently he hit me with another one because I wake up, they got the smelling salts, I get up, they get me out of the ring. The guy, come to find out, the guy had like an 82-inch reach at 6'2".
Bloody hell.
And I have a long reach, jab, right? Yeah. And it, it served me well over the years. This guy hit me like with an overhand. And I think when people are throwing punches, sometimes I have the hardest problem with the guys that are throwing punches. They don't know what punch they're going to throw next.
Unorthodox.
So it's, when you're dealing with you're training with the top guys that are throwing 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, these clean, crisp combos, and you get used to seeing those. Then all of a sudden, some guy comes out of a brick out of his pocket over the overhand. I literally had vertigo for like 2 months after that.
Bloody hell.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's why it's just like when you get to the top level, everyone, the technique is so clean. But I think you need to bring people in training that, some crackhead off the street, give him lunch money and tell him there it is over on that side of the cage. Go grab it and just have that dude windmilling through this thing because you never know what's going to happen, man.
Well, and for sure at heavyweight, respect to everybody that you get in there with regardless of their record because, you get 200 plus throwing their weight around. Anybody can knock anybody out at any time.
No, thank you. I was sparring with the big Nogueira, and we were just not going hard. It was on like season 9 Ultimate Fighter, whatever we're on, and he just threw a punch really hard, just like a jab, it was an overhand right, and it was coming towards my face. I was like, in my mind, I was like, he's not gonna hit me in the face. He's not gonna hit me in the face. But this all happened so fast. I'm like, I gotta move my face. I moved. He hit me in like right here. Man, it wrenched my back. My back was sore for a week. From a punch to the chest. And I'm thinking, and it wasn't even like he wasn't mad nut, it just came over, and I was thinking, why am I even standing here? Like, where's the heavier guys? Like, and he hit me in the chest, and in my lower back, it was kinked up for like a week, and I'm thinking, man, if you'd hit me in the face, I would have never woke up. Never.
Now, talking about big guys, small gloves, sparks fly, Fabricio Werdum versus Cain Velasquez. You're working a lot with Fabricio. How's the camp going?
Well, they started camp a while ago, and I haven't been in the camp to begin with. I've been gone. We had Lyoto fighting. Pedro's getting ready. Fabricio travels a lot with Fox Deportes.
Yeah.
And we've been back and forth. But over the last 2 years, we've been training for one goal to get that belt back. And at the time, when we started, I think it was still Cain Velasquez. Actually, he's had the belt for a couple of years. So that's who we were gunning for. And so
Junior Dos Santos originally?
Junior Dos Santos, then Cain. That's right. So what was it? Junior Cain, Junior Cain.
Yeah.
Right. So, and Junior, when we first started training, he was training for Junior because Junior, came into the UFC. He got knocked out by Junior, and then he got bumped out of the UFC.
Yeah.
Then got back in. We're gunning for him, and then Cain takes the belt. So we've been training for the last 2 years, really heavy. He's been training with Rafael Cordero, which has always been the master of his camp. Me with the wrestling, Cobrinha with the jiu-jitsu. So he's had a good camp. He's been trying to put this together. for each of his fights. So it's not just like, okay, we're going to start training now. So the last couple of years, he got refocused, rededicated, and that's another 240-pound guy that you don't want to get hit by or kicked by. Destroyed Travis Browne, who was before undefeated. No one ever took him down. So he's really, and he's training really hard, taking it serious. He went into camp 2 months ago, and the fight's in 2 months. So he's been really focused and real serious. So but those two guys are so big, man, and the cardio from Kane and just the heavy hands.
And that wrestling cardio, everyone speaks about the wrestling cardio. You said it as well when we spoke. Coming from a stand-up background, it's such a different type of cardio and exhausts anyone. Now, Fabricio is a grappler by trade, but that American wrestling stamina that everyone talks about, 5 rounds potentially against Kane.
Right.
It's pressure.
There's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure, but you know what? Today I sparred at Blackhouse, and I'll wrestle everybody on the whole street all day and night. I'm not going to get tired.
But you're a wrestler.
But I went 3 rounds with boxing, and I kept looking at the time like, I got to get the hell out of here. I kept looking like I never look at the clock. I'll just run through everybody. All of a sudden now with kicks and punches, it's always a different cardio. Jiu-jitsu is a different cardio. Playing chess is a different cardio, which Marcus knows about. But I mean, everything's different cardio. So I think that to have a great a base of something, whatever it is. I've been wrestling 30 years. I trained for 6 Olympics. I love wrestling, but I'll be the first to tell you, don't slip on your striking skills, or you ain't never going to get to wrestling.
For sure.
Someone will take you down with a right or left. And, don't slip on your Muay Thai skills. Don't slip on Jiu-Jitsu. I think in each one offers its own challenges. It has its own cardio, its own strengths, its own weaknesses, and that's why in the MMA game you need them all. And so like me, I can wrestle all day and night against any. I'm not saying I can win everybody against them, but I feel great and I'll never stop. Man, today I'm telling you, like 3 rounds, I was like, man, like that deep feeling where you want to just like please be over and I don't want to get hit no more. So I was like, hell with it, I'll just keep taking the guys down. And I was like, I'm not even punched no more. I'm not getting kicked no more. I'm not getting hit in the face no more. It's over. This is a wrestling match.
Yeah.
But it's a whole different game. If you can't hold your arms up and punch for 5 rounds, your wrestling's going to be gone too. So I think it's different cardio. So a lot of people, if I went into a match with a Muay Thai guy and kept it standing, I'm going to feel demolished.
Well, that's the difference in being a mixed martial. I get asked all the time because I box professionally, kickbox professionally, how would you do against this person or that person? I'm like, if we're just kickboxing, I'll probably be okay. If we're just boxing, I'd probably be okay. That guy's, we're talking about, the jiu-jitsu. I'm a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, right? Which took me forever, so I'm like super proud of. But the guys that I'm going against, I can beat them standing all day.
And you work with OSP, and I know you put on him because he was pretty new to the stand-up at the time.
No, to his credit, literally he was green as grass. Like he had just started, but he was crazy athlete. Because he played at UT.
Yeah, for sure.
So when we sparred, I was doing it and he was starting.
Yeah, it
was a different level. I haven't got to spar with him in a while and would like to see because I know his level has changed. But Ovens is a great because we live in the same town. People always ask me, "Do you think you could?" I'm like, I would still fight him in a boxing match or a kickboxing match, and I feel like could hold my own. He is a better MMA fighter than I am. Because he doesn't care if it goes to the ground or if it's up against the cage or if it's standing. There's a difference in being a complete MMA, mixed martial
I agree.
artist.
Like I said, I feel I have cardio. Cardio has been a strong suit of mine my whole life, wrestling-wise, and I wrestle. Mm-hmm. And so I've fought a few times, but never wanted to be a fighter. I fought just to
You're a world champion in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, but that's jiu-jitsu too. That's different, I mean, all of a sudden you start throwing strikes. You get kicked in the head one time, and it kind of takes your meter of energy down a lot. You get kicked in the knee one time. You're like,
jiu-jitsu guys with wrestler pace is the worst.
That's how I
ever.
won my first 4 worlds. I didn't even barely know nothing. I was just going after and after. But that type of pace doesn't work when you're plowing in and just getting maybe kneed in the chest.
Different.
It'll set you back a month. If you get a good knee to the chest. So, I mean, but that's what you said exactly, If someone says, hey, can you beat that guy? Kickboxing? Sleeping. MMA? maybe different. If it's just one or the other, like if someone says, "Can you go against that guy?" Sure. Just Muay Thai? Ooh, I don't know. I might take him down right in the middle of it somehow or another, a bunch.
Right.
But I think it's different. And even though that wrestling, everyone, traditionally says, "Oh, wrestler work ethic will take that as a base." Hey, I take it all day long. But if that same wrestler doesn't really practice striking and then runs up against a guy he can't take down, he is fucked.
Like Eddie Alvarez.
Yeah.
Or another guy, a jiu-jitsu guy that thinks he's going to go out there and just, I'm going to submit the guy. If you can't get him down, you're just going to get blown up.
You're going to blow it trying to take the guy down.
With MMA, it's its own sport, and I think at some point people are going to start taking it a little more seriously. I think even though there's a lot of champions out there and a lot of guys training hard, we're talking about this many people versus how many people take soccer serious and how many people take football serious. I know MMA's international, but the amount of participants is small compared to the amount of participants in other sports. We might have a world stage with our UFC with 400 or 500 guys under contract, 400 or 500 in the biggest league in the world. That's like 4 teams in the NFL or 5.
Right.
It's like 36 or 38 teams. I mean, look at soccer. So where our sport's growing, but the participant base and the knowledge base of the coaches is horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. So you get a strength and conditioning guy that's trying to be in the corner of a fighter because they help them with their foot speed drills. So I think we're behind about 50 years in the coaching area. And it's going to take guys like that where the first, second, third generations come through to be coaches, but they're not. Like look at guys that were the original UFC champions or the...
You talking about Matt Serra right now?
No, I mean, at least he's got a gym and coaches guys, but there's some guys that just leave with all the knowledge and don't give it to anybody. Look where you are. I remember OSP, I was at, I think it's one of his first fights in Shark Fights in Texas. Paul Daly was on the card. I remember seeing him. I was like, man, this guy, he's a football player from Tennessee, right? I was like, oh, man. Dude's for real. And I just saw him last fight he had, and I was like, hey, man, I've been following you ever since Texas. I just became a fan after his first fight. But, he stepped up and
that was a big fight for him.
Yeah.
That was
submitting
a tough
guys.
fight.
I just think that a lot of people now think they're going to go in, they join up for a gym, they pay their fee, they get a T-shirt, and then fucking maybe open their arms up a little bit more. And then walk around like I'm a fighter, and I'm gonna fight with my knee, and my manager told me maybe 2 more months I'm at my first fight. They can stretch that shit out for like a year to the people at their bars and girlfriend's mom and all these. But I think when you dial it in, people have to be more MMA guys and not worry about just wrestling or just jiu-jitsu. They got to put it together, and if you can't take the guy down, you better be able to stand.
I saw a guy driving in my hometown it's been a few weeks ago with MMA gloves on that said, I pull up beside him, he's got like a UFC MMA gloves on.
Don't mess with him.
No. I got a guy that joined up for my gym. He came in, he's got a jiu-jitsu tattoo and a cage fighter tattoo with a cage on.
I know what you're talking about.
I know, don't say nothing. He never fought in his life at the time. Yeah. And I was like, oh. Now, different than the guy you're thinking. I have another guy.
It's commitment.
They got to fight now.
In addition to that guy, I have another guy. Same thing, jiu-jitsu. I asked him, I said, what belt are you? He goes, any belt. Any belt. Answer, bro. He said, any belt. I said, no, what are you currently now? Man, what? Black, brown, blue, whatever you want to give me. I said,
I got a tattoo.
But I saw his tattoo as jiu-jitsu. I'm like, hey, that's commitment.
Yeah,
I'm a wrestler. I don't have a wrestling tattoo. But he was like jiu-jitsu. I was like, yeah, what belt? Any belt you want. I'm like, all right.
Don't
different than the guy that you know.
Yeah.
Because we got that guy too. That we and I deal with. We got that one.
But so from what you said, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, MMA, Muay Thai, from what I understood is that Werdum is going to keep this fight standing.
This is what I think. I think the same thing we do with Travis Browne. His game plan was perfect. He was going to strike with him. If he saw an opening to take him down. And that's exactly what he did.
Yeah.
If there was an opportunity for him to sweep him and start using his jiu-jitsu, Werdum is one of the best jiu-jitsus. Pure jiu-jitsu or jiu-jitsu for MMA. Yeah. Except there's one of the top 2 or 3 guys, period. So I don't think it's a bad thing if he went to the ground in his back, but it's not a good thing either. So I think the main plan for everybody, keep it standing, try to knock the guy out. If you see an opening, put him down. And definitely if he tries to shoot him, defend it because you don't want to be on your back. Especially not a guy like Kane who can. Not with that guy, because with any heavyweight who wants to be underneath, just a hammer fist is going to be beating him, and he's a real good in there. So That's I think most heavyweight plan. Stay standing, don't get taken down. If you see an opportunity, let's put them down.
Now, coming from a stand-up background and being a heavyweight, what do you think is the main thing missing in mixed martial arts among the stand-up? Obviously, people have evolved tremendously over the past 5-7 years.
Number one, I think, is body shots. If you look at MMA compared to boxing, kickboxing, I mean, is really, really underutilized.
I know.
Kicking and punching, I think, there's just not, and I mean, it's different. My stand-up, I had an MMA fight, one MMA fight in Atlantic City, and I cut to 185 because, they're like, oh, you're walking around at 220. You need to fight at 185. Right. Okay, it was a bad idea. But, just fighting in the cage and worrying about getting taken down, my stand-up was terrible because I'm shorting my punches. I'm not committing to my kicks because I'm like, well, and ended up really got taken down and swept the guy. My jiu-jitsu was better than his. His wrestling was better than mine. He walked the cage, got on top of me, and it's just an experience. It's different. Fighting in a ring, I fought in a ring, in a pit, in a cage. Came up through the tough man ranks. I fought outside.
Who do you fight in the tough man?
Oh man, actually, Spencer Fisher, is from a small town where I'm from, and Spencer fought me. No. I won the tough man contest, and Spencer was supposed to fight this guy, and the guy backed out. And it was like this was back in the Gracie days of UFC. So they're gonna have this super fight, weird rules. You're wearing gloves. If it goes to the ground, they pause it and take the gloves off. Whatever. Like, I have zero wrestling, zero jiu-jitsu, and, I bet I've been knocking dudes out, winning tough mans, winning money. So I'm like, we're buddies. It's like, shoot, they're offered us $500. It's like, well, we split the money. Sure. Okay. So we get in there, and believe it or not, Spencer is fighting me at like 210.
He was 210?
210,
Jeez.
right?
That guy was fighting 155.
Yeah,
he was
so
king.
Well, and this guy loved to fight more than any person I mean, he literally back in the day. I don't want to get in trouble for saying this, but back in the day, I mean, he would drive around, take a camera and put it on his car and like pick a fight. Like before, before YouTube's big, like he was doing that just for the sake of, he loved to fight.
Yeah.
So we're going, and I'm bigger than he is, and at that time I felt like a better boxer, and he shoots in to take me down. We're in the ring, and I don't even know what I'm doing. I get him in a guillotine, but I don't know it's a guillotine. I'm farm boy trying to break his neck off, and I literally have him picked up off the ground in a guillotine. And, he's studying, he then knew about jiu-jitsu before jiu-jitsu was big. He's got his hand in, he's wrapped his legs, and I'm like, I'm going to kill this. So I let him down, and I somehow, with like 30 seconds, I've got him like in a headlock, and I'm just going to hold him. He pops out, gets my back, chokes me to the point like I can't swallow for a week. It's like a bar arm choke, and I tap out, and that's the end of it. We high five and go on. But that really was my first experience with MMA. And I mean, Spencer, I think, was one of those guys that you're talking about from the beginning. Yeah. I think that guy is the kind of guys that need to be coaching because they understand the game, and it's hard to have. And I don't think that every coach has to have been a fighter.
No,
I just think it really helps. With the respect
they have to have been
factor.
Around the game and coaching.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to. If a great player didn't have to be a good coach, and a great coach didn't have to be a good player, but they got to have some understanding of the whole game where they can look at it and break it down. But you're not getting that, and I think since MMA is newer, you don't have guys around MMA. You got a guy that was a boxing coach comes in and tries to show.
And it's different.
I train in a lot of people's different camps, and I see the camps that they have. They'll bring a boxing coach in. The boxing coach wants nothing to do with jiu-jitsu.
Right.
And then
trying to show the boxing.
You get the jiu-jitsu coach is like, we don't need this boxing. We're going to put you here. The wrestler guy comes in, and and from a long time ago, I came up with like Couture and Randleman, Coleman, Kerr, all the guys, Henderson, Lindland, who was in the top of stuff. And these guys started off as wrestlers, learned striking, and then got into jiu-jitsu like super early, like 20 years ago.
Right.
And so it's made a lot of sense. If you have these type of rules, then you better know this game. But a lot of people still come into this second. New guys now watching TV that won't practice wrestling or won't practice striking or something, and they come in and they're very one-dimensional when, the Hoist Gracie, the Kerr, the Ralmans, they come on, they're more one-dimensional. Then you get into the next, like a Matt Hughes, who's got striking and wrestling, and obviously good jiu-jitsu. Then you get into the new one, like a GSP, a Jose Aldo, where they're like, these guys grew up watching MMA. The other two generations didn't.
Came from a sport.
They came from a sport and created MMA. Then you get the third generation, I think, is like a Jose Aldo's and GSP's generation, where they watched Hoist Gracie, they watched Kerr, they watched Koscheck, whoever, and now they want to be there. You get this fourth generation that they're fucking regressing. They see what you need, and they decide they're still not going to do it. That's crazy to me, because I think a lot of people grow up now, they're soft. They don't have the work ethic. You don't have accountability. And it's such a big sport now. If everyone wants to be just part of it, they won't just work hard. Like you came from a discipline, somewhere you started, one or two, and you did it your whole life. These guys are starting off, how long have you been doing jiu-jitsu? 5 years, all once a week. That means like 8 months.
Right. Well, they don't. I mean, and I've been fussed at over the years because my philosophy is a little bit different. But man, I came up boxing, like some of the hardest fights that I've ever had in my life were in the gym. I mean,
boxing sparring is very different. Mixed martial arts,
totally different. And I mean, I know you got to keep people safe or whatever, but so many of the MMA guys that I go with, they don't. I mean, they never
go hard.
They never feel like what it feels like to get hit until they're in there, and that's not when I want to find out. I
always tell people that don't experience anything new in a fight.
No,
that you have to go. What you don't want to be looking over like. You want to have already experienced that.
And I'm not saying put on 4-ounce gloves and wail at each other.
You're going to have to test yourself. What the bigger thing is getting hit and also going deep into the cardio. A lot of guys just give up because when they get tired and instead of picking the guy they should be smart with, they'll pick a smaller guy, rule with them, and deal with their own cardio. Right. As they're going up, they'll do anything to get to the big leagues. Once they get there, it's harder to stay, and then they start padding things around them. And then their workouts are not as hungry anymore. I've seen a lot of times.
Someone that you work with that never had that problem in training as well, from, me training with both Wanderlei and Werdum as well, seeing them going at it with 4-ounce gloves. Wanderlei Silva, crazy, not just in fight, but he trained the same way.
Oh, my God.
He broke my ribs.
Wanderlei Silva broke your ribs? The human weapon. We're gonna talk about human weapon.
That was not on the show, but I was there for a biography with Randy, and I did the pro class.
And Wanderlei broke your ribs, but now after so many years and him doing his goodbyes, how does it feel? End of an era.
It's crazy because it's just like when you watch Michael Jordan retire, when you watch Magic Johnson, when you see Muhammad Ali, they're gone, and you always thought to yourself, oh my God, you grew up watching them like front to back as long as you can remember, like Terry Bradshaw or someone. How could the sport ever be the same? But it's going to be. But it's really hard. You see one like an idol, or not idol, or just one of the greatest, and someone that always comes in, and win or lose, you're willing to watch and pay, and you can't wait to see. You can't wait to hear what they say with their hands. And so to see one of those guys that's like real old school, hard as nails, not going to see him fight anymore, it's like, man, who's going to step up and take his place? I want to see that, So that's hard watching, something like that. Just like the same thing like a Fedor or Randy, but Wanderlei, man, more than anybody is like.
Yeah. But now the way he went out as well, how.
I think that I wish it wouldn't have happened that way, and I wish that. Yeah, sometimes a lot of people are quick to judge. I'm not one to say what the commission should say, or the lifetime ban to me, or the like indefinite suspension. I don't know if it was called lifetime ban, or I think that's a little harsh. He's never been tested positive ever. Actually, never tested positive. But there's guys in there that have been tested positive multiple times.
Why do you think that is?
Which one? They've never been tested positive?
No.
He's got a guy.
But no, I think
that he got a lifetime ban. But like you said, there's people that tested positive more than once.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
And just still running the game. I don't know. And
And it's Wanderlei.
Man, you got to get inside the office to where these people are, whether it's the UFC, whether it's the commission, whether it's the, I don't hang the brick around one person's neck, but there's a collaboration of people making these decisions. And I know that let's just call it the UFC. I'm not going to say one guy in there because that's not fair, but the UFC is the gorilla. The commission is a slightly bigger gorilla when it comes to things. Those two people, somehow or another, behind the closed doors, there's something worked out. You see people like, remember who was the guy that was it? He made a comment that was from a TV show, something about rapist fans are always funny or something. It was from
Miguel Torres.
He said this. It was a line from Everything's Sunny in Philadelphia, from a network TV show. He said the same line.
Right.
They cut him from the UFC immediately for saying it. He was just repeating a joke from a TV program, but then he had to go to classes. They let him back in. Okay. There's some people make these crazy statements and make crazy stuff, and they go. Some people beating other people up, maybe men or women, and some people get away with it. Some people they allow back in. I don't know the rhyme or reason. If there's a rule and it's hard and fast, it's kind of like if you get pulled over by the cops and you're speeding this much, you get a ticket, I guess. If your meter runs out, you get a ticket. Sometimes you can talk to the meter guy, like, oh, please. And like, no, I'm sorry, I wrote the ticket. Some are like, okay, go ahead. There's always some wiggle room. The lifetime ban to me seems a little out of hand. I don't know if, maybe those guys sitting there making decisions, maybe they just woke up wrong side of the bed one day, man. You know what? I'm mad today. I'm going to let everyone know. I'm going to set a precedence and let people know we're trying to crack down. But if they're trying to show they're trying to crack down on drugs or the potential, because, Wanderlei never tested positive, but the potential to say, hey, we're a clean sport, bullshit. You know who's doing the drugs. 90% of everybody in there is doing some type of drug. So you know what you want to do? Test them all and put them up there. And then we'll have no UFC for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months until we get some new people in there tested clean. Do they want to do that? Same thing with football. Right. Do they want to test football? When's the last football player that got tested positive? I don't even know. Why would you mess with a $35 billion a year tax-exempt status situation? So if they want that, the owner owns the players. They own them. So every owner could have a meeting where all the players have to be there. That's normal. When they show up, every owner should get together and say, okay, all 38 owners, whatever, and say, okay, on this day, everyone's going to come in the room. We're going to shut the door, lock it, and we're going to test everybody on the same day. And we're going to make the results public. Whoever tests positive, you're fucking gone. Are they going to do that? No, because they'll have no more NFL. So that's it. Then the networks who are like...
So there's no testing in NFL?
I'm not saying there's no testing, but I'm saying, for example, when you walk in, Marcus, they're going to test you today. Maybe you should go get some of your cat pee and throw it in the Whizzinator or whatever its situation is. I don't know. That's, they're not. Do you think that, everyone's getting caught. Everyone's getting caught. Do you imagine the guys that have been caught in MMA? There's only a certain amount of people. Look at all the people. And I know. We're in the game. If you're in the game, it's going on. Now, are we going to tell on no one? No. But at the same time, don't make it fake. Catch one guy and then make a super big example. How about the other 100 guys that are doing it? Just be normal. The lifetime ban to me was crazy. I feel bad.
Do you think Kang Lee, who just got tested positive yesterday, will get a lifetime ban?
Dude, I don't know, but that dude swears to God he didn't do nothing.
He worked out. He was in shape. I've never seen a 42-year-old man in before.
He said he didn't do anything. And he thinks the testing standards are off. Just like when... I'm not going to say any names because I know these people, but you might hear I just took a supplement I bought from GNC. Must be a tainted supplement. I'm going to go home. I'm going to get all my supplements out of the counter, and I'm going to give them to the UFC, and they could test them themselves. Okay. That chain of command. Somehow or another, it's going to be broken down. Or like one guy submitted his dog's urine.
Really?
That's awesome, right? It was a non-human urine specimen.
Wow.
You got to be a stupid motherfucker. Ask your neighbor. Just ask your neighbor, why an animal?
Your girlfriend.
You're pregnant.
Yeah, exactly. You're pregnant. Did you know you're pregnant? So, I mean, the thing with the sports, I think, with the drugs and everything else, if they're going to allow some people, not allow people, just go across the board and say, we allow drugs. Just call it what it is. Just like in bodybuilding. They have drug-free and fully drugged up. And even the drug-free is still drugs, right? Just maybe not as much. I don't know what the criteria is, but I mean, if they're going to do it, but why do they give some people breaks? Okay, we're going to give you this suspension. Oh, it's only this kind of drug. Oh, it's your first time. I mean, it says clearly in there. What if it said first time, go.
3 months or out completely.
If it said you get caught first time, it's lifetime ban. If it says it in print, then they give you something less. Okay. But if they're going, this guy, 3 months. This guy, 10% of your purse. This guy, lifetime ban, don't ever, and a $70,000 fine.
I think it's probably the highest penalty in at least the UFC.
So I feel that was unfair. I feel at the same time there's not an exact standard across the board. And if they put an exact one in and just stuck by it, if you get caught for any type of drug, you're out. As much as no one wants to see it, just like, a few years before there was Anderson, there was no Anderson. I'm not saying about drugs, right? I'm just saying in general. There's a few years before there was, Randy Couture and Fedor. How could Tito, Ken Shamrock? No one could fathom the UFC without these guys because it was new. All of a sudden, Randy retires, Fedor retires, Tito retires, and all of a sudden you got GSP, Anderson, Jose Aldo, BJ Penn. All these guys okay, now those guys are towards the end
of the career.
Now there's a new guys, Conor McGregor. You got Pettis. You've got Cain Velasquez. You got Dillashaw. Pedro Munoz. You got all these guys. Marcus Cole. So you got all these guys that they're going to carry it on. So there'll always be like fighters there. And that one time I worked for the AVP, the Pro Beach Volleyball. And one time the Olympic qualifier was on the same weekend as one of the most major volleyball tournaments in the country. And everyone's like, oh my God, the top 3 men's and top 3 women's teams weren't going to be there. And this was in Chicago, and besides Manhattan Beach, was the largest stop on the tour. And so everyone's like, oh, this is going to be terrible. Well, it was sold out, like it always is. And there was just different teams in the finals. Still, they're all professionals and all great. But it's like having Matt Serra as the champion versus GSP. He knocked the guy clean out, won the fight. So now you got a new AVP champion for Chicago. And the fans loved it. It was unbelievable volleyball. And you sit there and go, if those other teams never came back, volleyball is going to survive. Just like, you know what? Wanderlei put his mark and grew MMA.
Yeah.
But him being retired, MMA is going to go on. And Randy Couture being gone, Fedor, it's going to go on. Yeah. It's bigger now. Before it was delicate because it was early on, like when you were in it. It's early on, it's touch and go. Now it's a machine.
The organization is bigger than the fighter.
Way bigger. And the fighters make it that way, but one guy gone. And if they had a stringent policy across the board, if they're trying to be legitimate, then why don't they just be legitimate across the board and just do what it is? Because you don't accidentally shoot yourself up with HGH.
It's hard to get through anything else as well.
It's kind of like people on drugs. Like, I can understand, okay, you smoked a cigarette because your friend made you, but you don't accidentally shoot yourself up with heroin. No. You don't accidentally shoot yourself up with testosterone that you had to go find somewhere and draw and do whatever.
That you can't get from the GNC.
Right. Unless you're in countries that allow it, and everyone does it. But they know. So why don't they just call it what it is? Get caught once, be done. Same thing as pedophiles. Get caught once, you put to death. No trial. I agree with this. So if there are certain just known things across the board, but in sports, being in sports my whole life, and especially being at the Olympic level and seeing all the things go on, I don't care if my opponents do drugs. I could care less. I've won most of my matches anyway, so I don't give a shit. You can do what you need to do, and you're going to have a shorter lifespan and feel bad for it. But if you're going to create an even playing field and you're going to put penalties out there and just kind of pick and choose to use one as a scapegoat or to one that you're going to post up as a martyr, come on, man. Do it across the board. They've got their favorites. There's people that have tested positive that they fucking never said a single word about, and there's a reason.
Now, mixed martial arts coming up, and again, you're a black belt in Taekwondo, a black belt in Krav Maga. you're a professional kickboxer, boxer, MMA, and you developed the show Human Weapon that showed in Sweden as well. It was one of the first shows. It was like, wow, the world gets to see, household names get to see, not just mixed martial arts, but martial arts. How did you come up with the whole idea?
It's a great show, by the way. I love
Yeah.
that show.
Thank you
This
very
dude's
much,
a legend.
Thank
Just
you.
thinking about
Yeah, right?
Right? Shit.
I've always been interested since I was a little kid, Man, of course, I'm a little older, so I came up with the Van Dams and the Segals and Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee, and, I would watch these, and I would go out, in the backyard and practice my moves, and I wanted people, because even now, I own a Krav Maga studio, we do kickboxing, we do Krav Maga, we do MMA. All anybody ever says that's not like in the game, or like, they look at you and be like, you're the karate guy, right? Karate guy. I'm like, yeah, I'm the karate guy. So a part of it was just my own, my personal love for the martial arts, and the other was just to educate people on all the different arts out there and where they come from, and the culture involved. And then it's always been the question in the first UFCs. You got to see it. You got to see karate versus freaking sumo wrestler versus jiu-jitsu player versus and I didn't know about jiu-jitsu till Hoist Gracie. Yeah. I'm like, he's coming out in a gi. What's he doing? He's going to get smashed by this giant guy, who's wearing a bandana and, does, taekwondo. And I really, a lot of people, and the fights there's some arts where there's just not a fight. We try to do capoeira. If the capoeira is so beautiful because they come really close to hitting each other.
Right.
If you actually hit each other,
the
dance is over. The spin move's done.
Yeah, the
right?
flips are gone.
So I love the show and the concept for the fact that it showed the different martial arts, where they come from, how they were developed, why they were important at the time, and they've lasted. The UFC is,
right.
But even boxing and kickboxing and jiu-jitsu all came from traditional martial arts.
But as good as the show was, and again, people that didn't watch martial arts, like, I watch this show, you do that, right? You do the Krav Maga, or you do the Jiu-Jitsu. I watched it on the Human Weapon. It was a great way of getting people that weren't interested in mixed martial arts and thought everyone fought was a criminal to open their eyes and say, whoa, this got some history.
Or they don't even know what mixed martial arts is. They're just like, they see it and they're like, oh, I didn't know. I never heard of Krav Maga. There's a lot of people never heard of it.
No, exactly.
But then they see it and then they're like, oh, I want to know more. And they'll go research it. They'll watch the show again. It's like, oh, sumo. Oh, kung fu. Oh, and they start realizing. And then when somewhere down the line they'll see like an MMA and they'll start realizing, oh, that's karate. Oh, that's the people that don't know. Oh, that's the guy, the jiu-jitsu guy who fought the karate guy. There's people that.
Right.
And I think that's part from your show, too.
But I was surprised it was only one season. Why weren't there more seasons?
There's only one?
Yeah.
How's that possible? It seems like the Human Weapon. I feel like I was watching it yesterday, man. That's bullshit. Bring it back. That's fucking bullshit, dude.
I think the time slot hurt us being on Friday night. Everybody on Friday night, DVRs. And on cable, you gotta, that's why shows like Mythbusters. You watch Mythbusters at 2:00 in the morning on Sunday. You've been out doing whatever, and you come in and you sit down and watch the show. It's got to repeat well. There were some other shows that came out like Fight Quest.
Yeah.
Fight Science came out. There were a bunch of shows, that came out right about the same time, and it just. Who knows? Maybe it comes back in the future, revamped or something.
I'd like to see it. Definitely like to see it.
I want to be in. I want to show the wrestling part.
Yes, all right. Now you got Kenny for
That's
the
what
wrestling
it is.
part.
He just wants a bit. But
the wrestling part in there. And I just want to be on TV. And
I
show
have
my
people
good
ask
side.
me all the time, like, what do you think? Because I've done a little bit of everything. What do you think the best art is? But, or I think that they're the baddest, Okinawan karate guy in the world. He's a bad dude.
Yeah.
The baddest, the Okinawan karate guy or Japan, is literally could put his fingers in the side of a caribou cow. Like, he broke a baseball bat, like, in the side. He broke a baseball bat with Bill Duff holding it, right, with his forearm. Snapped it in half, and it's not like a prop or anything like that. We went Dick's Easton baseball bat, boom, snaps it in half. Camera guy goes, I didn't get it.
No.
Yeah.
Had to do it again?
So he was gone. We got a new camera guy. No, I'm just kidding. They do it again. The guy doesn't even. He just snaps it in half again. And I'm like, crazy, this guy has a stone that he just beats on this stone every day. And I'm thinking, he's not a jiu-jitsu player. He's not an MMA guy. But imagine that guy getting in there. All he's got to do is just hit you once, right? Yeah. And he's going to break your face.
Yeah.
So
and that's why it's fun to see in mixed martial arts as well. So people come from different styles, like Lyoto, for example, showing that you can't just do karate.
I love Lyoto's style.
Yeah,
he's awesome.
And coming in with a different style. And no, it's funny. It was a Swedish, since this is MMAnytt, and Ralla Swing with Musse Hasselvall, who's was a fighter too, actually, in Sweden. Very similar to Human Weapon, actually. They did the same thing. They traveled round, and then at the end of the show, they would do a little fight, similar to Fight Quest as well. And I know Musse said, I asked him, well, why didn't you do more? They were so good. And everyone in Sweden knows it and said it was too early. The hype about mixed martial arts still hadn't come around. And
I think
now
so
would be
too.
a good time.
I think it was a little bit too early.
How long ago was it?
2007.
God
really?
Dang, that doesn't seem right.
It happens quick.
It doesn't even seem right. So far long, yeah.
My son's about to turn 18, and I'm feeling the exact same way. Like, wait a minute.
Right?
Whoa.
Easy.
We have 2 fight cards tomorrow. We got the one with Pierre Munoz and Terry Seferdin, who's also been training at Blackhouse. You've been working with him. Main event against McDonald's. Real quick. Predictions?
I hate predicting, especially with guys I know in there. But who I'd like to see, I'd love to see Tariq continue his streak. He came out as the champion in Strikeforce and come into UFC and kind of bring his his kickboxing background, his Muay Thai, and he was obviously worked his wrestling real well when he was in Quest with Dan Henderson, and continuing recently coming over with Daniel Bahau to Blackhouse, and he's really dedicated. He's real good guys, dedicated to training. So I'd love to see him go in there and mix it up and change up the 170 weight class.
And he's been calling out Rory McDonald for a while.
And I think Rory, to me, Rory McDonald a couple fights ago, and he got demolished by who demolished him? Hendricks.
Yes. No. The undercard for that, it was he fought.
And he got demolished.
Yeah. Huh? Yep.
Who was it? Robert
Lawler.
Before that, they were talking about how they interview him, I'll never fight GSP for the title. And I'm thinking, well, first of all, you need to win about 6 more fights to fight GSP, if GSP's still there. But he's like, I'll never fight him for the title. And they talk about him being the next champion, the next thing. And the next fight, he got absolutely demolished. Now, Robbie Lawler's the man.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not saying taking away from him, but I just was thinking to myself, you're like 6 fights away from the title, and you're talking about you're never going to fight your friend. You're an idiot. I would hope you would fight your friend. If I feel like if me and you fight, like we have some insight in each other.
Yeah.
At least okay.
Stay the fuck away from the takedowns.
But and so from there, I was like, I just didn't like the added. I think there was a pompousness that he had that he didn't deserve yet.
Right.
And so then each fight, I secretly, not in a bad way, I was like, okay, let's see if he's gonna be the next champ. And so then he proved me. He's obviously a great coming up, but
I think it was a lot because GSP said he's going to be the next champ, and they got that.
That
hype.
sounds great, and he should, because that's his next protege.
Yeah,
right.
But then when this guy GSP, I never heard him say, "I will never fight Rory," because at the same point, I'm like, well, I'm going to put this little guy down. But so Rory, I can see maybe showing respect, but at the same time, it's kind of like when they asked Lyoto, they guaranteed him when he beat the Mousasi, they guaranteed him the title fight against Weidman, and they wanted, all the questions were, okay, against Weidman, are you think that? And Leo said, hey, I gotta fight Mousasi tomorrow. I'm not even thinking about title. Ask me tomorrow about Weidman when I win. Not don't start talking about the title now. And I think that's just sometimes that gets to me. Like you'll hear guys, oh, I'm going to be besides Conor McGregor, says me a 3-division champ. But you got these guys like maybe there's a certain heavyweight that came into the UFC and said, I'm going to be a 2-division champ. Dude's bounced out. He barely even won a fight. Yeah. So I just sometimes when I hear that, I all of a sudden secretly want anyone else to win but them.
How far do you think Lyoto is from a title fight?
I think he beats CB. CB's in the top 10. I think he's like around 9 or 10 maybe. And Lyoto's where he dropped after that. I haven't seen the rankings. I think he may have to beat CB well, and then he might have to take one of these guys like how they're doing Bisping Rockhold, and then you have Jacare versus somebody. I can't remember who they're going to do Jacare versus. Then you have Weidman, Belfort. So there's some couple fights. I think I hope CB Dollar fight. One more of these guys coming down, whether it's a Rockhold or Bisping or something else. Whoever wins that to go there, and one more. Hopefully 2 fights away. I would think. Yeah. If everything goes well.
Anderson coming back.
Anderson's fighting January the Super Bowl card against Nick Diaz.
Now,
that could shake things up too. If Anderson came in there and did that well, it's kind of like Dana said. If GSP comes back, he gets an immediate title shot. Yeah. Well, Anderson's coming back, and he's still literally he lost to Weidman. He had a rematch and broke his leg. He's still the number one, I think,
contender.
number one. But I think the Nick Diaz fight. I think Nick and Anderson, I think they both wanted that fight against each other. I don't think it was a matter of, and even Anderson said, could he have came back and pined for a shot? Probably. If you break your leg in the first, right away, you come back. But I think the Nick Diaz fight was compelling to him as a competitor.
Fight. Yeah.
Because, he's like, Nick Diaz is no joke. He's proved it.
Yeah.
Neither is Anderson. He's like, hey, okay, let me come back in and go this way. That's not a tune-up fight. That's a super fight.
Nick Diaz is not a tune-up
for anybody. That's a super fight. So I like that. So I think if whatever happens there could shake things up too. That I don't think anyone's thinking of. But that's in January, January
around
30th.
The corner.
Lyoto fights December 20th, so that's going to come up sooner, and there'll be some shake-up there. And it won't be until mid-year of next year that the winner or Anderson or Nick Diaz could get into that mix. So I think there's some shake-up. I hope too. Put Leo right there.
That's good. And then we have a second show tomorrow from Sweden, Stockholm, where you've been in the Globen. Main event, Gunnar Nelson from Iceland taking on Ricky Story. It's not perhaps the fight card as a main event for Swedish fans per se. Gunnar Nelson being from Iceland and definitely up-and-coming prospect. Really tough. And
super tough guy.
But at the same time, I think maybe the UFC in the US thought that Iceland is a little bit closer to Sweden than it actually is. Even though I still feel like we're brothers, and I'm excited to see. Obviously, I would like for Gunnar Nelson to win tomorrow. But any predictions on that fight?
I've only seen Rick fight once.
Getting choked out, I presume, against.
So that's not really.
Was that in Brazil? Was this a long while ago? Right?
He fought champ 170 jiu-jitsu specialist.
Oh, Damian Maia.
Yeah, Maia.
Oh, that's
when
right.
he got choked out and the blood was splurting out of his nose. A lot of people.
So
saw
I really, I can't.
It's kind of hard to use that, but Gunnar's been coming up and he's training.
Nelson's tough,
really tough and talented. Young. He's one of those up and coming guys. That's the 4th generation guy. It'll be that one. I don't have a prediction. I just think that I think a lot of people look at that and they're not concerned about that card. Oh, that's not a main event card. But there's so many UFC fights going on. They have to create champions and create household names. I think that's a good place. Sweden's obviously they're fanatics. They sold the Globe. The Globe was sold out, and that place was
3 hours.
Dude, that place was a madhouse for the MMA. So and everyone there was excited about it. And I think that to have that's a perfect place to have these guys fight because they're not the biggest names, but at the same time MMA's newer in the area, so just to have the card there I think is important, and then let's see who comes out on top and creates a name for themselves.
And to all the Swedes that fight tomorrow, Niklas Bäckström, Ilya Latifi, my boy Hamid Akira Karasani, who's the co-main event there tomorrow, who's got a tough fight against Max Holloway. You can say the blood. Coolest nickname is in Swedish means doggy. It's the coolest nickname ever, doggy.
Okay.
It sounds cooler in Swedish than it does in English.
The translation had come over. I mean, the baddest motherfucker on the face of the earth in every universe, which is mine, sounds. I don't know how that translates, but it's got to be fucking awesome. But go ahead, doggy.
Doggy.
I'm just joking. It sounds great to me.
And yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing them all tomorrow. It's obviously the time difference, 9-hour time difference, so we'll watch that tomorrow morning. A last request. Not only do you fight, but no man can translate a rap song into a country song as good as you. Can we get that on camera?
No, that'll be the next podcast. That'll be next time.
Amazing. Are you sure?
No, I'm good, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
We're gonna run off the iPhone. Be real.
A bit, yeah.
Like some Be-Real stuff, some behind the scenes,
there.
and we can always tag it on. So, you want to catch on MMAnytt.com.
MMAnytt.
See? I've been in Sweden,
I think the only one that can pronounce it better than Uriah has gotten it down pretty well. Yeah,
see there?
That was good. Thank you guys for coming in. I really appreciate it.
Thank you,
and good luck to
thank
Werdum,
you.
Rafael dos Anjos, Lyoto Machida, and Pedro tomorrow, obviously. And hopefully we get to see Human Weapon too.
Yeah, definitely.
Hopefully.